My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Good morning and welcome to the challenge. As always, first and foremost, we want to thank God for the opportunity and thank you, the viewers, for tuning in. This morning's challenge is a takeoff from what we talked to you about in our last episode. We want to focus, if you will, specifically on just what money is and how we should become more aware of how to use it and how, quite frankly, it's created and where it comes from. We here at the Challenge are focused on the solutions to problems. We know that there are a myriad of problems that exist, but we also understand very clearly, as the Bible says, the money answers all things. And that is, quite frankly, I think the dilemma for most people. Why is it that there is such a high concentration of wealth in 1% of the people in this country, and all of the rest of us, quite frankly, seem to have to figure out how to live from one point to another. So there's no coincidence that our cities, the urban areas, which quite frankly are littered with people who have all kinds of conditions, both physical and mental and even more so spiritually, are dealing with the issue of money. The biggest issue, I believe, that we face here in urban centers, and specifically, I think, in urban America, is poverty. Now, some would argue that needs to be another leg added to that stool. There's also education. And then, quite frankly, we have to add even another leg to that stool, which is how we are all a part of this fabric and this mosaic that exists in America, which is built by its corporations. We don't spend enough time understanding what drives America's companies to be the companies that they are. The word capitalism and capitalist seems to be, I think, misunderstood in most places. And quite frankly, being a capitalist should not necessarily mean that you are not a part of the democracy. They are hand in hand. And the democracy that we have, which says that everyone should be able to participate in this country, in the welfare of this country, is frankly how we arrive at taxation. Our taxes, our tax dollars go to our government to provide services both federally, on the state level, and even at the local level, to provide services for us, those who are residents and those who are a part of the makeup of those cities. And frankly, the use of those tax dollars is what has, I think, or I truly believe has created the conundrum. The use of those tax dollars, most people believe that the way to gain access to them is to participate in the political process and to participate in the political system. And that has led to corruption at all levels. And most folks, they don't understand that those tax dollars and the people who are elected as officials to govern are supposed to make sure, as stewards, as the people who we trust to oversee those things, are being done for the betterment of the people who are the ones who contribute those tax dollars to the coffers of those places that they are controlled. For example, the corporations and corporate taxes, which were just given tax breaks to by Donald Trump and those folks at the national level, I believe has created or will create a tremendous amount of surplus for companies who may or may not have been as profitable or not profitable in the past. Now we'll see profits, I believe, that they've never seen before, just by the reduce in taxation, the reduce in taxes. But here's the point. Those taxes, we first of all work for those corporations. Those corporations have become profitable, have made money on our backs, the laborers of those companies. Whether you are the janitor, whether you are the maintenance guy, whether you are the groundskeeper, whatever you do for those companies goes into the expense of running those companies. And that expense, that labor that you have actually given to them is how they have made. Not only have you given your labor to help make money for those companies, but the money that the company gave you for the labor that you provided that company allowed you to pay taxes to a system that is supposed to provide services for you. You made money for a company, yet that company in turn paid you for helping them to make that money, and the money you made was paid into a system through taxes that is supposed to provide services for you and for me. Now here's the issue. Now you've made this money, and the government has it, and those who are governing, who are responsible for being good stewards over it, have decided in some cases to either lend or either to grant those monies back to those corporations for their continued success, or to create new companies in hopes of them doing what's best for the people or the residents, or those people who gave to them those taxes and gave to them that labor to help them to create and raise that money. That money is not reaching the people in urban America. That money is going into the coffers of a very few. And the people who are in the residents of those cities who pay those taxes through sales tax, through car taxes, property taxes, those taxes, that money is not being utilized for the very betterment of the people who the taxes were raised for. They claim that too much of it is going into social programs, and too much of it is going into welfare programs and safety nets for people who frankly, they don't believe have participated in it. But that is not true democracy. True democracy means that everybody should be able to participate in what takes place within that system. Democracy, according to the civil rights movement in 64 and 65, meant that there was one person, there should be one vote. Everybody should be able to help to decide on who would govern our country and who would govern in our municipalities and on the state level. And that governor should be able to act as advocates on our behalf to make sure that our cities and our neighborhoods and our communities are better off and that they're made better because the issues and the concerns of those people are going into the mix and into the decision making that's being made by those people who are governing and who decide on how the monies will be used. That money is not reaching those communities, those small businesses that they claim are the engine for economics in our neighborhood are finding themselves grasping for straws. Profit margins are much smaller, not percentage-wise, but certainly in volume and in size than those of the larger corporations. The profits of those small businesses are so slim that, quite frankly, it goes back into those businesses in order to survive. So what are we saying here? We need to understand where money comes from, how it's created. And then we need to understand why we need to be participants in how that money is utilized. So the challenge is to speak specifically to exactly where this money comes from and how this money is being used and why, quite frankly, are we all made better because of our participation in this democracy, in this capitalistic society, the way the founders and the idealists had envisioned. There are some who want to keep people in permanent servitude, keep them always beholding to them for whatever it is that they need to survive. But I tell you, there is a day of reckoning, and it is on the horizon. Things will certainly change. We're going to take a break right here, but we'll be right back. Thank you for tuning in to the challenge this morning. This segment is a continuation from last week's episode on exactly how to deal with the issues facing the communities, urban communities, and how though there seems to be very little emphasis on solutions to those problems, how we resolve and how we solve the issue of poverty, especially in urban America. And we want to say specifically in urban America simply because just as there is this concentration of wealth in a certain segment of our population, there certainly seems to be a concentration of poverty in a certain segment of our population as well. Urban America seems to be really struggling with how to change the dynamics of those communities. The folks who are in those communities are left with being underpaid. They've been marginalized, and quite frankly, no matter how hard some of them seem to try, no matter how many jobs they have, they just don't seem to be able to come out of their impoverished conditions. So many other factors that play into that frankly, it's hard to talk about them all on this particular broadcast. But here's what I'm hoping we can use as a takeaway from the challenge. There are plausible, feasible, practical solutions to the problems that exist in urban America. If there is a problem, there is a solution. And frankly, if there was more emphasis placed upon solving those problems, I think we would see something that would make us all better as a society. Capitalism and democracy, we talked about just prior, should be working hand in hand. Capitalism is a system where everybody has a chance to participate in the competitiveness of it, and because it's a competitive environment, most companies, most corporations, frankly, feel it's a we versus them or us versus them, kind of mentality. And that, quite frankly, I think spills out into the larger society. It's an us versus them kind of mentality all over the place now. We are the victors, you are the victims. We won, you lost, we're in charge. We're the champions, and therefore we get to decide on all that, champions are supposed to decide on, and you are supposed to be subjected to us. It has turned a lot of society into such a hostile place that they forget that the democracy, which should be working hand in hand with capitalism, should be what's most significant to them. We're all in this together. Unless we all work together, we all perish together. A house divided cannot stand. And so a lot of people are missing the point. And the challenge, we believe, is to how we deal with poverty in our society. If we deal with poverty, a lot of the maladies that exist within our society, both medically and physically and mentally, would, I believe, be addressed. We might not be able to cure every single ailment that's in society, but we would certainly make a difference if all of us were able to participate fully in this democracy. What am I saying? Just as those corporations were given the tax breaks, we who participate in those corporations, we who help to make those corporations profitable, should also be participating in the success and the profitability of those corporations. They've taken money from our coffers to help to subsidize, to help to pay for a lot of the research, the products that they've developed, the services that they provide. And so, because of our subsidizing of those companies and those corporations through tax breaks, through tax credits, all the things that companies look for in order to help them to achieve the level of success that they have, given to them by the system that we pay into, should help us also live better lives. Not just one-time or two-time bonuses or bonuses yearly, but something substantial as shareholders are treated, as people who are owners in the same way that the owners or founders of corporations seem to be taking home the largesse. We've talked about it before, and we're going to continue to talk about what the Center for Economic and Social Justice is trying to do. The Center for Economic and Social Justice now has a Hartford chapter, and our Hartford chapter has a regular monthly meeting. It's at Trinity College, and I'll have to get you the specifics on that, on the time, but I believe it's the second Tuesday, and I'll reconfirm this at some point, the second Tuesday at 6 o'clock in the evening. But the Center for Economic and Social Justice is specifically geared towards fixing the problem of poverty in the greater Hartford area. They have embraced the concept from the national office, which says that we all should become owners. And if we're not all owners, someone at some point in time will own us. And what do I mean, own us? Even though you're working 9 to 5 or 9 to 9, who you're working for someone else, you are tied to those companies and to those people for what you need in order for you to survive. That's a form of ownership. I mean, that is a form of slavery, quite frankly, where they own you, and you don't necessarily own, or you're not an owner yourself. So we want you to understand. Now, money is made only two ways. You know, you make money either by working, or you make money by allowing your money to make money. So there's only two ways to do it. If you're not working, then you need to have the ability to have the money that you do have work for you, so you can in fact earn money by allowing those who are experts in their areas, or who are good at producing and providing products and services, to utilize that money the same way investors do, to earn money for yourself. Our society is rapidly changing, and we need to understand that money is a tool, and we need to understand how to use that tool to our advantage. And so there used to be, I think, according to Say's law, only your labor made money for you. But now things are changing. with the advent of new technology, the labor that was used to make you a part of making money for other companies now is dwindling. And frankly, it's dissipating, and it's actually leaving us. And so unless we are in a position to be a part of the new technology that's on the horizon, we will find ourselves in even deeper poverty than we're experiencing right now. We have to take a break right here, but we'll be right back. This week's challenge was intended to talk to you about money and poverty in our neighborhoods, in our urban areas, and hopefully give you some insight into the solution to the problems that exist in our urban settings. Last week we talked to you about pension funds and how you, as people who have participated in pension funds, have left it to those administrators to decide who will manage that money and who will utilize that money as investments for opportunities that exist out in the marketplace. This week, we tried to talk to you about capitalism and democracy and how they should work hand in hand, and how as people who participate in this democracy, we give taxes to our state, local, and federal government, who in turn uses that money supposedly to provide services for us, but also use it to give to others, to lend to others, to grant to others, for the purposes of subsidizing businesses. And how that subsidizing never seems to reach us as people who have participated in this system, even though we are using our labor to help those companies be successful, we share very little in the profitability of those companies, and that is by design. And so it's because all of us, or the vast majority of us, are finding ourselves in that shrinking or in that forever growing community of those who are left with a lot less disposable income, and finding ourselves in that place where we're just not a part of that 1%, if you will. That's the wealthiest of the wealthy in this country and throughout this world. We are finding that the margin of disparity is what I'm looking for, is growing. The margin of disparity between those who have and those who don't is growing. And for those who don't want to see it, the reality is that people are turning to all sorts of external ways of trying to deal with it. Opioid addictions, stealing, drugs, crimes, which is not completely limited to urban areas. These kinds of maladies exist throughout our country in areas that are even more affluent. It is all of our problems. We have a responsibility in our society to do all we can to help even the very least of those who are around us. And so, the challenge wants to highlight the fact that there are so many things that, even though they seem insurmountable and they seem to be problems that make no sense, there are solutions to those problems. They really are solutions to those problems. And so the focus on money. This particular episode, we need to know that those people who are in government, quite frankly, are using that platform to decide what's best for us, but are frankly keeping us in this permanent servitude. And they need to figure out a way to make this system work for every single one of us. And that's why I highlight the Center for Economic and Social Justice, because the economic and social justice that we need now gives us all an opportunity to participate in the success of those companies. The Googles of the world, which deserve all the credit in the world. I think they're one of the largest ESOP companies out there now. Employee stock ownership plans are part of Google's makeup, and they frankly allow employees to be shareholders in their companies. And most of those people who participate in those ESOP plans are living very splendid, very fulfilled lives. So it can be done. And so the Center for Economic and Social Justice, when you have a chance, look for it on the internet. I think there's a Facebook page for it. Look it up and look for the Hartford chapter and find out when they're meeting, and come and hear what we're talking about in those meetings, because we believe that every single person matters. Everybody can participate in the success of this country, and there is no reason for there to be so much and for others to have so little. There is absolutely no reason for it. The only issue is power and control. There are those who want to determine what's best for you because they believe that you don't know what's best for yourself. And so I think that things are changing, and a reckoning is upon us, because the injustice that has been a part of this capitalistic society and a part of this democracy is front and center. We must address it because those who have controlled the money have controlled the people. And the control that they have held over those people has led to us versus them mentality, a we versus they mentality. A house divided cannot stand. And we must understand that we're all in this together. So let us look towards those solutions to those problems. Let us understand what those problems are, and let us understand how to utilize the tools that we have in our midst to change those situations and to fix those problems that continue to persist in our society. It can be done. The challenge is to us to embrace those ideas that work towards something that is meaningful, something that is amicable, and something, quite frankly, that is prosperous for each and every individual that is a part of our democracy. We can do it. I know we can. We are all here. We've all been given a purpose. And so the challenge again is to work to fulfill that purpose and to do all you can to help those who are less fortunate. We will continue to talk about money. There are other ways in which money can be acquired. There are other avenues for money. Next week, we hope to talk to you more about our Federal Reserve System, how money is actually created through our Federal Reserve System. Talk about, Wall Street a little bit. Hopefully, those who are participating will accept our challenge. And maybe I'm not 100% accurate in terms of my perspective. And then those who are weighing in are willing to come and share and give a perspective that I don't necessarily have. But I know this, that we can all do better. Thank you for tuning into this morning's challenge. Remember, be blessed.